Hey everyone, it's Zach Beck. If you've ever wanted to own a piece of Apple or Tesla, you might be in luck right now because both companies are going to split their stocks here coming up this week. And as a result of that, their shares are going to become more plentiful and affordable. So what I want to do in this video is talk about what a stock split is, why you or I should be aware of it, and more importantly, should you or I actually consider investing in these companies right now when their shares become more affordable. So let's jump into it right now. So you might be asking yourself, what is a stock split? And what a stock split is that when a company is in good or firm financial footing, what they will do is they'll go to the board of directors of that company and actually ask for the shares of those to become more plentiful. Meaning right now that if a stock price is very high, like either Apple or Tesla right now, they will then offer more of those shares. So they will effectively reduce the price of each individual share, but then more shares will be available for the broader market to purchase. So as a whole, it makes this a bit more accessible to the everyday investor, but it really doesn't change the overall dynamic of how valuable each individual share is. Stock splits are usually defined by what's called a split ratio. Usually that's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio or a 4-to-1 ratio, or in the case of Tesla, a 5-to-1 ratio. And how that actually works is that if an investor has one share of a stock, if it does a 2-to-1 split, then that investor will get an additional share of that company. In addition, if they did a 4-to-1 split, if an investor owned one share of the company, they would then be issued 4 times as many shares as what they currently have. But then those shares would all be worth a quarter of what they were worth previously. So ultimately you end up with more shares, but the overall worth of those shares has been reduced. So in effect, you actually have the same amount once you are issued those new splits, but then over time, you're hoping that that stock grows over time and actually gives you a broader amount of value and worth because you have more shares of that company. You might be asking yourself, do you lose money in a stock split? So generally speaking, what you're going to find is that with a stock split, you don't end up owning less value than what you previously had. You actually have more shares of the company, so proportionally, you own more of the company. It's just that the value of each share has been reduced. So as a whole, you really don't see much of a change. You just see the broader change in that the fact that you have more shares than you did previously. So Apple is doing a 4-to-1 stock split. So let's say, for example, that you own 20 shares of Apple that were each worth $500, meaning your total overall value would be $10,000. After the stock split would occur, you would then own 80 shares of Apple worth about $125 each, which would still equal $10,000. So net, you don't see a change, it's just that you have more shares of the company as a whole. And once again, over time, that might become more beneficial. You might be asking yourself, well, if we do stock splits when things are going well for a company, what happens when things are going bad for a company? And that is what is referred to as a reverse stock split. And it's basically, as the name implies, it's basically the opposite of everything I just said. So you would actually be given less shares of a company that are worth a little bit more than what they were previously. So overall, that just generally changes the dynamic of the company because they are trying to restrict or contract as opposed to expand. So it's just one of those things that you want to consider. So if a company is doing a reverse stock split, it's generally not a good thing. So with Tesla doing a 5-to-1 split and with Apple doing a 4-to-1 split, you might be asking yourself, are there other companies that are considering stock splits right now? And the question is really important for us to ask because it's happening more frequently than it did before. So what you're going to find is there are a few companies that are blue chip that actually might be at a place where they would consider wanting to actually do a stock split. And there's some recognizable names out there, specifically Amazon, which is sitting at over $3,000 a share right now, which isn't necessarily as accessible as many investors would be able to reach from the average individual. In addition, the company Alphabet, which owns Google, which also runs YouTube, they are actually sitting at a high rate as well, so they could consider a stock split. Furthermore, companies like Chipotle might even consider a stock split. Now, you might even consider other companies who've never done a stock split before, and historically, you're going to find Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha. He specifically owns the company Berkshire Hathaway, and they have famously never done a stock split, and their stock right now now is worth over $326,000 a share. So it's not necessarily a requirement that if a company reaches a certain level that they are required to do a stock split. It has to be a decision made by the board of directors. And once again, a stock split does not necessarily change the overall value of each individual stock. It actually reduces proportionally the value of each stock. It just gives the shareholders more stocks to hold on to. Now, there's a simultaneous benefit that occurs when stock splits happen. It gets the economy talking about it. It gets the average consumer maybe more interested in investing and then they hadn't previously considered doing so. So sometimes companies will make this decision not just to make it more accessible to the average investor, but also to promote their company as a whole and hopefully get an influx of capital at that time. Now, historically, that doesn't really change the overall trajectory of these companies. If they have good fundamentals right now, they should have good fundamentals later on, so they should do well. But it just kind of drums up a little bit of excitement. It gets a new group of individuals investing in the companies, and you might see this actually having a broader impact now with different applications like WeBull, Wealthfront, and then companies like Robinhood who offer the ability for the average investor to access the stock market without having to go through an investment organization. So you're going to find that perhaps right now we might see a broader influx of capital going into these companies right now, which then might spur other companies like I previously mentioned to do the same. So it's just a fascinating thing to be aware of right now, but overall that's just what's going on right now as it pertains to stock splits with Apple, with Tesla, and potentially with other companies. You might be asking yourself, is it better to buy the stock before the split or after the split? Realistically, it's not going to make that big of a difference for yourself personally because you'll end up with about the same amount of shares, but the value of each share is going to be proportional. Obviously, if you purchase one share before it splits, then you're going to get the number of shares the split ratio is going to provide you with, but the value of those shares would be equivalent to what you would if you were spending the same amount of money to purchase those additional shares later on. It's just something for you to consider, but I would say this brings up the broader question about investing in individual stocks versus investing in the broader stock market as a whole. Now, I am a bit more of a proponent of investing in what are called index funds, meaning a broad base of companies such as the S&P 500. And when you invest in index funds, what that does is it diversifies your investment as a whole. So what you're going to find is, generally speaking, that is a good long-term approach when you maintain a buy and hold strategy for putting your money into the stock market. Now, it's easy for us to identify companies like Google, companies like Amazon, companies like Apple, companies like Tesla, so we can see these companies are very successful, so we might want to put money in them. So I understand they might sit in a different threshold than, say, your average tech company, your average mom and pop shop, or whatever it might be. So from that vantage point, this might be an opportunity for you to actually diversify by doing some individual stock investments, because you can risk a bit more and potentially gain more down the road, but the risk is substantially more significant when you invest in individual stocks in comparison to the broader stock market as a whole. So my bigger perspective on this is to maintain that type of strategy when it comes to investing, because it's safer, it's more practical, and I understand it, and I believe that is a good approach to take. Now, if you want to take money and invest in these companies, that is totally up to you. It's just you have to know that out of the gate, that is going to be a riskier thing to do, which hopefully will lead to better overall success long term, but might not necessarily give you the gains you're hoping for. So that's just something I wanted to share with you, because I believe it's important that I disclose as much information to you before you make these kind of very important financial decisions as it relates to obtaining your goals and your financial future. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. If you wouldn't mind, please like the video. That would mean a lot to myself personally, help push this message to other people who might need to hear it. In addition, if you have any questions about this, please comment down below. I'd love to interact with you, get to know you, answer any questions you have, do anything I can to help make a positive impact in your life. In addition, if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to the channel. That would once again mean a lot to myself personally, as I do a lot that I try to do on this channel is to make a positive impact in your life by encouraging you and myself to lead lives of meaning and purpose, all while maintaining balance and moderation. And if you do subscribe to the channel, please tap the notification bell. That will notify you every time I post a video, which I do on a weekly basis. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. I look forward to talking to you next time. Have a great day.